All right. Hello, everyone. I think you can give me sort of a thumbs up if you can hear me. I think we are a few minutes after 6 o'clock, so we can probably get going. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Derek. And thank you for your WhatsApp to me telling me that you can hear me typing profusely. I apologize for that. I didn't realize I was unmuted. And as luck would have it, I seem to be having challenges with my WhatsApp on my phone to actually have reception in my office today. But be that as it may, here we are. I think we can kick things off. So, to those of you who don't know me, I'm Bradley. I'm Dr. Bradley Greenhalgh here from the Faculty of Law. I teach a little bit in the Advanced Law and Technology module, and have also been working over the past, or collaborating rather, over the past 3 seasons with our AI and the Law seminar series that's been arranged by Derek Swart and his team. So, a warm word of welcome to everyone. I see Dr. Brunt is here as well, and then also in particular to our two guest speakers this evening. I promise this to be a really interesting session. I see that the recording has already started automatically, so in true, I suppose, Poppy fashion, I hope you don't mind that we are recording. We will not distribute this any further than what we need to, but we do have many students who are presently in the midst of their examinations and assessments, and we have received queries from those students if we can please record the session and also make it available to those who are interested in watching. So that is the plan. So hopefully everyone is all right with that. If there is an issue, just let me know afterwards. So without further ado, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to hand over to Nerushka, one of South Africa's leading authorities on generative AI and related emerging technologies. And Nerushka, I believe you'll be engaging with us on the Future Ready Lawyer. Nice to see you virtually. And then after that, Lucia, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, the delivery lead for Weber Wenzel Fusion, which is the air quotes the new law offshoot of Weber Wenzel, competing with one another there, quite strategic in terms of catering to both sides of the spectrum to see what will happen. And Lucia, you'll be sharing your thoughts on AI in practice transforming legal work, and then we'll get together myself and Derek and Dirk and any other interested people for a bit of a panel discussion afterwards. Is that all okay? Is everyone all right with that? Have I got that right? I hope so. So without further ado, Nerushka, I think I've managed to make you an organizer, so you should be able to take over things on your side, and I'm going to be quiet, and then we'll jump in again afterwards. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and so lovely to be here to talk about this topic, the future ready lawyer. And it's something that comes up time and time again when I give talks about AI. Everybody wants to know, what should we be doing? What skills should I have? What should my kids be studying? How do we navigate this transformational time that we live in? And so today, that's what I'm really going to talk about for a couple of minutes is, first of all, what are the skill sets that we are seeing emerge that the future ready lawyer should embrace? And secondly, how do you navigate this change that AI transformation brings with it? And I think both of these questions that I'm going to answer, yes, in light of this generative AI kind of phase that we're going through, but I think the principles apply for any technological transformation or chaotic period that you're going through. I think the principles underpinning all of this kind of remain the same. So I'm from the Lit Institute, which is where we're really bridging the gap between law and technology. And we do that through a number of ways, one of which is helping others and teaching others about this technology, what the risks are, what the legal issues are, governance, regulation, and trying to bridge the gap between those two industries. And so it's a very exciting time to be playing in the middle of technology and law, as I'm sure all of you are aware as well. So I don't have too many slides, but just prepared something just to give us a bit of structure for this conversation. So what are some of the skills that we're seeing emerge in this future ready lawyer. Now, if we think back a little bit, we had this paradigm of the T-shaped lawyer where there was a mix of soft skills and technical skills, and then we went into the O-shaped lawyer, which was very much more on the business side and softer skills side. And now when I look at what really is the skill set that we're looking at as we move forward and navigate the changes ahead of us, I've come up with the four C's that for me really stand out, and the themes keep coming up over and over again. And I'm sure everybody who's been researching in this space would be able to concur with some of these themes. The first one, and probably the one that I'm the most passionate about, is something called calm confidence. And I actually gave a talk a week ago at the Legal Innovation Tech Fest about that the next frontier in legal innovation is not AI, it's not artificial, but in fact it's human, and about how actually putting ourselves first and taking care of ourselves is the ultimate optimization that we can do in any organization. And when I say here calm confidence, what I mean is if you look back in kind of like the old school legal industry kind of setup, or the hierarchy and the traditionalism that went with it, you often had the situation where you had a very scared kind of like junior working under obviously dysregulated senior person, being shouted at and told what to do. And it was kind of a way that you had to, pay your dues to go through that in order to work your way up the ladder in this profession. And I think, people are pushing back on those type of toxic environments. And now we want to work in environments that are conducive to our well-being. And so when I say calm confidence, I'm talking about a leader who is confident, who is successful, who is ambitious, but doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be loud or shouting or screaming or dysregulated. They can do it within a calm, peaceful, serene manner, but still be able to command a room, still be able to command respect, still be able to lead an organization. And I think the organizations which can get that right and create that type of environment is going to attract the best of the best. And really, you're going to see people thrive in that environment because you're going to be able to be working at your best within that environment. And it means altogether the system in that organization will be at its peak and heads and shoulders above everybody else. And so, for yourself as an individual, how do you curate calm confidence? Well, it's a number of things, but one of them is, of course, taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, your body, and things like your nervous system. Understanding how do you keep yourself regulated? How do you keep yourself, going under pressure without breaking down, without burning out, without being completely overwhelmed and anxious? How do you learn these skill sets early in your career so that you can actually cultivate the calm confidence as you move up the ranks and become a leader in this field? So I do think people who are in control of their emotions as opposed to reactive to their emotions are going to come out on top. I think most people don't understand how their bodily systems function, how their emotions functions, how their mind functions, and they become very reactive. So when we get worked up, we get angry, we get emotional, and these are all reactions to things that are happening within us without us understanding where those things are coming from. So I think there's a lot to be done and a lot of work still to happen in the world of these kind of calm, confident leaders. But I do think the people who gets it right will stand head and shoulders above everybody else. So that's the first thing that I think is very important in terms of the future skill set. The second one is critical thinking. Now, whenever anybody asks me what's the number one skill, if your child is going to university to study, for example, what should they be doing? I always say critical thinking. And there's a number of reasons for this. Now, one of them is that in this AI revolution that we currently undergoing, people are starting to outsource their thinking to AI. So instead of you doing your assignment, you're getting ChatGPT to draft it on your behalf, and you're doing a little bit of edits and then submitting it and hoping to pass it off as your own. In that whole use of AI, you haven't done the work yourself, you haven't read the works yourself, you haven't analyzed it, you haven't done the critical thinking required to create the neural pathways in your brain to be able to really delve deep into the subject matter. In that scenario, you're just outsourcing all of your thinking and hoping to pass or score a decent mark, and that's really your goal. If you shift your goal to say, I want my brain to be at its peak, and I want to be able to come up with these ideas and concepts and philosophies myself, you will actually be encouraged to engage and do it yourself, as opposed to outsource your thinking to an AI, because you want to have that skill for yourself. Now, yes, there's a number of ways you can use AI without completely outsourcing your thinking. It's a great way to get started, to brainstorm, to edit, and there's a lot you can do. And I'm very much pro AI in terms of using it as a tool. I just think we need to be doing it mindfully and doing it in the right way, and not in a way that's completely outsourcing these things to an artificial machine. Now, it gets even scarier when we're looking at younger kids who are still coming up the schooling system, who haven't even built the neural pathways yet for critical thinking. And if they start outsourcing their thinking, then it's a scary world that we're going to end up in. So those of us who actually keep those skills, are reading the underlying source matter ourselves, are asking questions, are engaging with the subject matter, we will keep our brains, keep that neuroplasticity, and actually be able to critically think ourselves. Whereas in the future, you're going to see the other people who've just been outsourcing all of their work and all of their thinking to AI are going to struggle, and you're going to see a gap really emerge. Because what does your brain do? Your brain only uses the pathways that that light up. So you have all these pathways built in your brain, and when you stop using certain pathways, over time those synapses slowly die away, and they're actually gone. And it can be rebuilt, but it takes a lot of effort to rebuild those synapses. So slowly over time, you're going to see people just take the easy way out and outsource that thinking. And as I said, if you want to stand out and if you want to shine, then harnessing that skill is going to be key. The third one, which I think is, for me, one of the most important ones, I'm saying all of them are the most important ones, but they really, really are, is curiosity. Now, if you think, the future of work is going to university, getting this degree, getting a job, and then you just work the next couple of decades until you retire doing the same thing, those days are long gone. We don't have a workplace anymore that has this one job that's just there for a couple of decades. You need to be curious about the changes happening in the roles that you're going to be taking on when you enter that workforce, because change is going to become the norm. So yes, with AI, we're going through a change, but even while we in the change with AI, there's a new thing coming, there's a new thing coming, there's a new thing coming. If you can stay curious about it, as opposed to scared, anxious, fearful, or overwhelmed, if you can have an open mind and stay curious and always wanting to learn, you can be that person who's always open to trying something new, doing things differently, and seeing where it takes you. And having that curious mindset also helps you explore. A lot of people are also scared to use new tools, scared to use new technology because they haven't done it before. If you're curious enough to at least experiment and try in a safe environment with, doing so responsibly, you can already put yourself ahead of the curve in that sense as well. And, in terms of learning, it's great, obviously, to have established institutions where we can go and have a structured learning environment. But once you're out in the working world, things are not as structured anymore when it comes to learning. However, because of the internet, you have the world of knowledge at your fingertips. So if you stay curious enough, you can still continuously learn even outside in a structured environment. You can create your own unstructured learning path just by being curious through things like YouTube videos, blogs. You can stay up to date in terms of what's going on in the developments. And it doesn't have to be AI related developments or tech related developments. It could be maybe you practicing in a particular area of law. Maybe you go down the path to become an environmental lawyer, and maybe you stay curious enough to make sure that you're on top of the latest developments in environmental law. That skill, and taking that interest in something, shows your passion, shows your drive, and shows you're not stagnating in this world that is going to be ever changing. So trying to prevent stagnation, I think, is very, very important. And if it comes naturally that you're curious about and you're asking questions, you'll see that it will take you a long way. The last one I wanted to talk about is communication. Now, communication is really the future, because what we're seeing with AI is leveling the playing fields, in the sense that what used to be in the domain of very technically skilled people, or PhD researchers or software programmers or whatever it is, AI is opening up the playing field. And if you know how to ask AI for what you want, you can probably do the same as somebody with that skill set. It's all coming down to communication. And having a legal degree is also to your benefit, because what is the job of a lawyer ultimately? The job of a lawyer is to go through reams and reams and reams of information, technical jargon, all of the rest of it, synthesize that information and communicate that to your client in a way that makes sense and in a way that's practical and helpful to your client. So we've been trained in any event to be communicators, and now we just have to change that skill set and be able to communicate with AI agents, agentic AI. And those of us who are able to do so will see that these skills are really helpful to kind of navigate this change coming ahead. Now, that's the skill set of the future ready lawyer. The next thing I want to just quickly touch on and close is the 3 E's framework. And this is a framework for what should you be doing to navigate change. And this could be any kind of change, AI change, technological change, or whatever you're going through at a particular time. First of all, the first one and the most important one is education. Now, you have to keep yourself updated and educated, because, as I said, this ties in directly with that skill again of curiosity, because things are going to always be changing. So having love for learning just throughout your life, and keeping yourself updated as things change, is only going to help you in the long run. Don't think that you've graduated university, your learning has stopped. Your learning is you're just at the beginning of that journey, and keep on that trajectory. The second one, again, also ties back to curiosity, is exploration. Have fun, and try out new things. We are so early right now with AI and generative AI. You could be the one to discover some completely new way of working. We still haven't figured out what the new business model for law firms should look like, what the incentives should be, how do we value legal work. There's so many unanswered questions at this point. If you take that time to explore, you could be the one to come up with something really cool. So have that curiosity to explore explore and find new ways of doing things. It's like the early days of the internet in the 90s, before we knew about social media and YouTube and applications and all the rest of it. The world was your oyster, and the world is your oyster even today. And again, one of the most important things is to harness your empathy, harness your human advantage. People always say, are robots going to replace me? Is AI going to replace me? Yes, if you behave like a robot and what you're bringing to the table is very robotic and monotonous, and you're not doing anything beyond these type of automated tasks, then yes, an AI is going to do it quicker and faster than you, and possibly you're going to be in line for automation. But if you look at things like your human advantage, connecting with another human can't be done by an AI. At this point, taking your client out for coffee is something still in the domain of a human flesh lawyer. There are a number of things that we have that the robots don't have yet. Yes, the AI is going to be a tool that may change the way we practice in this industry, but ultimately, as humans, there's a number of advantages that we still have that we can leverage, that can't be outsourced, and that shouldn't be outsourced unless we allow it to, because we ourselves are behaving like robots. So, as I said, the 4 C's in terms of the skill sets you need to harness, and the 3 E's in terms of the things you need to do to navigate that change. If you want to hear more from me, you can sign up to my newsletter, Building Future Ready Lawyers newsletter, by just scanning this QR code. And if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is info@litinstitute.com. Looking forward to chatting more in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nerushka. That was very interesting. Yeah, and a whole bunch of questions have already been popping up in my mind, certainly. But let us now jump over to Lucia. Are you okay on that side? You can go
All
ahead
good.
and present. All good. And then I'll
Thank
disappear,
you.
and then
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, very excited to be a part of this discussion. I'm a little bit tired of hearing how AI is going to take people's jobs, and I'm pretty sure that all of you are too. So this is why I love this advert from Fiverr so much. It steers us away from the fear mongering and towards a more positive and proactive approach to AI in the workplace. I thought it was just a really, really clever little ad. But before I get started, maybe someone on the call can help direct me, just to get a better feel for the lay of the land, because the approach is markedly different depending on which university students I'm speaking to. But if you can just give me a thumbs up now if students at Stellenbosch have been encouraged to use AI by their lecturers or professors, if done so responsibly, that would be good to know.
it's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, in some faculties, that approach is already starting. Economic and management sciences, in terms of what is required by psycho, they actually are having AI components that are being part of compulsory modules now. The law faculty is presently in a lot of policy discussions, and we're rolling out we will be rolling out documentation around this shortly. At final year level, there are modules where it is being encouraged, subject to it being declared, but certainly at the lower levels, it's not something that is actively promoted currently because of the concerns about substituting learning and the like, but
Okay.
not the default position presently.
Okay, perfect. Very good to know. All right, so yeah, with that grounding, I think even though the South African market is a bit behind in its AI maturity compared to countries like Europe and the US, AI obviously isn't coming to legal practice in South Africa. It's already here. It's being used in most of the law firms, especially the large law firms. And the feel in the market is certainly that AI isn't about to replace lawyers. It's more about transforming how we work, the way in which we work. So how do we provide services to clients by incorporating AI into our services? So I wanted to focus on practical skills that the students can start building now, and not focus on kind of theoretical futures, because none of us know if general AI is coming or not. But effectively, you don't need a computer science degree to use AI. You need to learn more how to work with AI effectively, not the kind of underlying technical capability. So just to be clear, becoming an AI native, which is the term that's starting to come up in the sector, that has nothing to do with coding. It's actually more about, I believe, three core skills that will set our young lawyers apart. So let's do a quick reality check and talk about what AI native actually means. So let's forget about the myth that you need to learn Python or other code or understand machine learning or go deep into any technicalities on large language models. I mean, you're welcome to do that, and maybe it gives you a better grounding and understanding how these tools actually function. But AI means knowing how to collaborate with AI tools to deliver better legal work and faster. So it's a professional skill like legal research or client communication. It's not a technical skill. So it's a softer professional skill that needs to be learned. So if we put this into a real world context, we're seeing junior lawyers already using AI to put together, first drafts of research memos, to undertake contract review, completing due diligence exercises. And as you move up the chain, law firm partners are asking, can we use AI to do this more efficiently? The Fusion team at Weber Wenzel is constantly being engaged in helping partners and practice groups to use AI, different tools that have AI capability to drive efficiency into their work. And then obviously law firm clients are increasingly expecting AI enhanced services. So they're expecting faster turnaround times and lower costs on their bills. And an interesting practical insight that we're seeing is that sometimes using AI doesn't necessarily reduce the cost of the client's bill. That might be quite surprising to hear, but it's largely because the AI is able to surface additional insights, so which human lawyers might have missed. So it then requires the lawyers to consider and get input on those additional concepts in the matter, which obviously uses additional time. So the use of AI in legal work does more often than not result in a higher quality of work output, but not necessarily a lower cost to the client. And I think as long as the value of your services is of very high and superior quality, clients actually are not expecting the cost to be lower with the use of AI. But this is something that we're having to guide the market through in terms of understanding, because AI is so good at synthesizing information, large volumes of information, and does do it better than a human. It obviously then surfaces additional insights and things that we wouldn't have thought about. And I'm sure people have seen that in when they use, ChatGPT, etc. Sometimes when you ask it a question or ask it to draft something, it says the output contains information or ideas that you haven't thought about, and that's great. It's obviously adding value to what you're wanting to achieve. So what is the opportunity then for students? Most lawyers aren't doing AI well. They're not yet integrating or collaborating with AI and using it in their work. They're not doing it very well yet. They're getting there. A year ago was markedly different to how it is now. But what we're seeing is that early adopters who combine legal judgment, so their expert judgment, with AI fluency, so being able to work with AI and understand what it can and can't do, have a significant competitive advantage to those that are not using it. So this is your chance to build skills that your peers might overlook. And what are these skills? So let me break down my top three that I believe matter the most. So there's three essential skills that can set you apart: prompt engineering, data literacy, and process mapping. And I'm pretty sure that at least two of these weren't what you were expecting me to say. Prompt engineering, I'm pretty sure everyone knows about. It's very good to get that right. whatever you're putting into an AI tool will give you the appropriate answer out. So, but data literacy and process mapping are often overlooked. So let's run through them, starting with prompt engineering. Excuse me, my slides are frozen. Let me try. Always funny when we have technical errors in a legal tech team. Let me quickly stop sharing and see if I can get it to move on for you quickly. It's asking me to restart my PowerPoint. Give me just a second if you don't mind.
No worries. Thank you, Lucy. Do you prefer Lucy as your first?
It's Lucia.
Lucia. Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
it's Italian. But
and
it's a difficult one, so don't worry.
And your surname?
Quai. It's British.
Okay.
Both very difficult names to pronounce.
The Afrikaans people can do that very easily.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exquai. Absolutely. All right, let's go back onto prompt engineering, and hopefully it plays ball this time. So prompt engineering is increasingly being called context engineering, and I think the name says it all. You're customizing the context in which you're wanting the AI to give you an output. So it's really the art of giving the AI clear and effective instructions. So not just typing questions, you're crafting prompts that get reliable, useful outputs. And one useful tip that people just don't think about is if you're unsure whether it's a good prompt or not, or you actually just don't know how to write the good prompt and you've got some basics, then actually ask the AI to help you do it. Most AI tools, whether it's Anthropic, Claude by Anthropic, or Google Gemini or ChatGPT, they are all very good at actually drafting their own prompts. So you can give it a bad prompt and ask it to improve it for you. It might ask you questions in response to try and get you closer to a better prompt, but it will certainly kind of lead you along that journey. So there are 3 elements of a good prompt: clear instructions, constraints, and examples. So with clear instructions, be very specific about what you want. A bad prompt is something like summarize this contract. Very brief, doesn't really give it much direction. Even though you're grounding it in the contract itself, it doesn't really tell AI what exactly you're looking for. So a better prompt would be something like summarize this employment contract in 200 words, focus on termination clauses or notice periods, and draft a covering email to the client. So that's obviously a lot fuller. It's 3 sentences, but gives it clearer instructions on what you're looking for. In terms of constraints, you want to set boundaries. So tell it how long you want it or how short you want it. Tell it the format you're looking for. Increasingly, AI tools, especially the chat tools, are able to give you output in tables now. And focus on your tone as well. So what tone do you actually want it to give you the output in? Must it be informal? Must it be professional? Must it be funny? And then jurisdiction is important, especially in legal. So if you're looking for an answer or outputs and you want it to consider particular jurisdiction, area of law, make sure you tell it that. So an example is draft in plain English suitable for non-lawyer clients, or apply English law only or South African law only. And you could also in your prompt tell it what to avoid or what to exclude. So you could say something like, don't include speculative advice. So it knows not to be speculative. So guide it as much as possible. Give it examples. So you could even show it what good looks like. So here's the format I need it in, and provide a template, or use this style and then paste a sample paragraph of a style of writing that you want to use. And a practical example of this is, instead of asking it, for example, What are the risks in this clause? You can try something like identify all the commercial risks in clause 8.3 of this SLA from the customer's perspective. Often it's nice to give it, whose perspective you're wanting to get. You can tell it to focus on particular risks or rights or obligations, and then you can tell it present it as a bullet point list with brief explanations. So, it does benefit from that additional instructions to create a good prompt. Why does it matter to have a good prompt? I mean, you could just ask it to summarize the contract and it'll do a half decent job. But it can mean the difference between generic output or genuinely useful work product. It also saves time on revisions and refinement and entering into a conversation with the AI back and forward to try and get what you're actually looking for. It also builds your ability to think precisely about what you actually need. So when you're sitting down and you're wanting to ask the AI to do something for you, taking the time to think about what exactly am I looking for, it obviously helps you as well to understand what you're actually needing. And what we say to our the partners or senior lawyers in the firm is when they're prompting the AI, think about how you would brief a junior. And take a similar stance or similar approach as a starting point. Okay, we're having issues again with the slides. Just a second. There we go. Data literacy is our skill number 2. So this is things like using Excel and being able to analyze data. And maybe it's a surprising truth, but basic data skills are becoming as important as legal research skills. So you don't need to be a data scientist. So just being comfortable with Excel spreadsheets and basic Excel use and simple analysis of data or information. Some examples of this in practice are, for example, Excel basics. And I know that Microsoft and LinkedIn offer very quite a lot of Excel basics courses that you can take online for free. So things like pivot tables to analyze a whole bunch of data points. VLOOKUP is a great one that gets used to cross-reference data, and simple formulas just to be able to spot patterns or outliers. So that's Excel. And then basic data literacy, so understanding what questions that your data can answer. And knowing when to ask it. So can we analyze this systematically rather than reviewing this manually? And the last is spotting trends that inform legal advice. It's becoming increasingly important. What we are seeing is that lawyers are increasingly extracting data points out of large volumes of documents. So for example, if you think about large contract reviews, either for a due diligence exercise or other work streams, you've got sometimes tens of thousands of contracts. What we're doing with AI is we're using it to extract particular data points. So, for example, when do these contracts terminate? Who are the parties to the agreement? Is there particular revenue associated with each contract? And then the AI extracts that into, for example, a table format. The lawyers then need to be able to analyze that data once it's been extracted to get meaningful information and provide legal advice. So there you see the cross-section of how AI is being used, but then the lawyers are still needing some basic data literacy to be able to analyze and give proper legal advice. And how exactly does the AI fit in? So they can help analyze the data as well. As I said, it's very good at synthesizing large volumes of data. I think the key is to know what to ask for. So for example, if you're prompting the AI, ask it to create a summary table of all the payment terms in these 1,200 contracts. Show me the payment period, the late payment interest, and the currency. And obviously, you need to understand the output that's needed to be able to give the legal advice. And the bottom line is that the simple analysis of data powers better and more commercial legal advice than historically. And obviously, clients value lawyers who can spot patterns and provide that data informed to counsel. And the last skill is process mapping. So essentially with process mapping, we're looking at, well, the core principle is that you can't automate or improve what you don't understand. So it's very important to understand the process before you automate it or improve it or you use AI. What is process mapping? So that's process mapping is essentially when you're writing down the actual steps you take to complete a task. So it's not what you think you do, but what you actually do in undertaking work. It's basically breaking up work into discrete, repeatable steps. And it matters because you can't delegate to AI effectively if you don't know the process. So look at the process, and this often reveals inefficiencies that you didn't even know existed. So maybe there's a step in there that has been taking place that's actually not even required anymore, potentially because AI is filling that gap, or potentially because the work wasn't being done efficiently. And to put together a process map, so essentially what you do is you pick a routine task. So for example, preparing a board minute, and then you write every single step, whether it's open the template document, check the people's names and addresses, review review the document for confidential information. So you're literally writing down each and every single step in the process of undertaking the task. And then you identify categories. So which step in that process requires legal judgment? If there's a step that AI assists with or not, you can decide, which of the tasks are mechanical, which are the ones that AI can do without humans getting too involved, and which are client facing. So which ones do you want AI to draft and then you refine? So very important to do some process mapping and understanding where the AI fits in. And then you can do a test. So can AI do step 3 faster than me or not? And an example is in a law firm environment is one of our trainees mapped a lease review process, and there were 23 steps, and they realized that steps 4 to 8 were just checking standard clauses against a checklist. And AI now does that in 30 seconds. So they focused more on the commercial negotiation points, which led to it being a higher quality product in half the time. All right, so that's process mapping. Those are the 3 skills. Now, I wanted to show you something that's both slightly evil and maybe a bit of a cheat. I'm going to share a link in the chat when I'm done to a living Google sheet called AI Writing Red Flags. It's basically like a graveyard of phrases, rhythms, and structures that make writing sound just like it came out of ChatGPT, even if it wasn't. Now, I'm very conscious that sometimes output sounds like it may have come from AI when it's not, but it's a community resource. You can add to it. And yeah, the point is, whether it's written by a human or an AI model, these patterns have become cliches that people are identifying with AI. So they're obviously dangerous in a legal context because they signal lazy thinking. And when a marker or a judge or a partner is reading and they hit, that same tired phrasing, things like at the end of the day, or in today's fast-paced world, or this is the game changer, those little parallel lines, like it's not about X, it's about Y, then their brain just checks out. They don't think, oh, what a terrible person, but they think, I've heard this 1,000 times. There's probably nothing new here, and they kind of check out and they stop reading. So I will post that. How this red flag translates into law school reality. So I guess your exam script might be one of 400. Your moot heads of argument might be one of 50. Your vacation scheme application might be one of 600. So if you open with, in today's ever-changing legal landscape, you're not just using a cliche, you're actually telling the reader that you've read this paragraph before somewhere else and it's not unique. So the sheet that I'll share doesn't only list single words, it also flags structures and rhythms that kind of scream default AI. It's not about X, it's about Y kind of patterning. If the rows are short, where you have dramatic sentences, every second sentence is a rhetorical question. That's one that comes up a lot with AI written output. And of course, none of this is illegal, right? In some contexts, I guess it is, but in most contexts, it's not. But some of them are just overuse by AI, and we want to try and avoid them. So yeah, some quick ideas. You can use this as a cheat sheet. So final check filter on your output. Make sure nothing that you're writing sounds like this. It's also a prompt to think a little bit harder. So, use your brain, try and avoid these terms. Yeah, and protect your own unique voice. So I think AI makes it very easy to slip into like very generic LinkedIn-ish kind of writing. So your job and your future as a lawyer is to develop your personal voice that should be precise and grounded in authority and must be yours. And the AI is fine, and templates are fine, but the thinking has to be yours. And I think that's what people are wanting to see more and more. And lastly, just wanted to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So again, AI is a tool. It's not a replacement for legal judgment. You remain responsible for all your work products. Please do not become over-reliant on AI and stop using your brain. Always, always review, verify, and apply your professional skepticism. Don't use output directly from AI. You want to rework what it's giving you. And yeah, I hope you found it valuable. There is obviously a lot of opportunity in the way we use it, and I really just hope that the future lawyers learn to use it in a collaborative way, but in a way which increases their value as opposed to diminishes from it. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love sharing content and insights around the use of AI and tech, so in the legal sector. So you're welcome to give me a follow or connect. And yeah, looking forward to getting some feedback.
Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. Just to all our participants, please pop up any questions that you have in the chat. We'll certainly start working those in. Derek, I don't know if you've got anything that you want to jump in with there?
While I have the mic, thank you, Nerushka and Lucia, for your time. We don't have the greatest numbers on the call, but we are recording it. And for those guys, when they come out of the exam hiatus, certainly we'll make them watch this. And anyone working for me, I think I'll make them watch this as well. Thank you very much. I want to just maybe start, Nerushka, with saying I think how profound it is to have someone talk about taking care of a nervous system. I'm a neurodivergent sort of person, and so it's something that's close to my heart. And I've built my firm with the help of many people over the years, coming up to 20. And I've realized how easy it is to fry a nervous system, and we don't talk about this enough. So I'm very grateful that you're out there waving the flag for this stuff, and it's a lifelong learning journey how to take care of this. Do you have any sort of tips on what to avoid to fry your nervous system, if I may ask that?
Sure, I think a lifelong journey is the right wording for this, and I think even for myself, came to it very late in life. But I think if I learned about these things, 20 years ago, it would have been a very different, calmer journey. Missed a couple of sessions of burnout along the way, I think, if I knew then
I
what
think
I
I'm
know
on
now.
my third one.
You know what? I think everybody's on their own journey, and it's hard to say what works for one person will work for the next person. There's lots of in the well-being industry, there's lots of different things you can try. And what I think is, don't force yourself, especially when it comes to nervous system regulation. If you're doing something because you feel you heard this lady on this webinar say you have to do X, Y, and Z, it's going to become another item on your to-do list, and it's going to cause you more anxiety and stress when you don't do those things than if you actually did them. So what I will say is find moments to give your mind quiet time. Now, I'm not talking about sleep. Sleep is one thing, and good quality sleep is very important. But in addition to good quality sleep, in our waking hours, we are so busy and occupied 24/7. We're either running from meeting to meeting, we're scrolling on our phones, we're watching the computer or Netflix or talking to somebody. We can't be still. And the reason we can't be still is as soon as we are still and alone with ourselves, the nervous system starts shaking and it's very uncomfortable. And so we start to numb it immediately. And what I will say is when you start having those jittery feelings, be curious about it, invite it, and allow it to come to the surface, because that will allow you to feel it and let it exit the body, as opposed to suppress it and it coming out decades later in one big boom. So it's all about allowing things to move through the body. So movement is very important, whether you like to run or you like the gym or you like to swim or you like to dance. Find things that are meaningful to you and incorporate that into your life. If you like to meditate, if you like to go to church, if you like to read spiritual books, if it's meaningful to you and you're curious about it, you'll find a way to incorporate those quiet moments, those movements into your life, and keep it. And it must be an everyday thing. It's not a once a month weekend that you give to wellness.
That's great. I mean, I like that. I think being jacked in all the time leads to this decision fatigue as well. It can get to a point where someone says to you chicken or beef and it's just too much. If I may, Bradley, while I have the mic, just for Lucia as well, I love the fact that you're so purposeful about how these things are used. I think that's really what's necessary for us here. I like the fact that you said that we should develop a personal voice. I read hundreds of CVs every year as people apply to us for candidate attorneys, and boy oh boy, there's little personal advice, personal voice there. A lot of it's so incredibly stale and robotic, to put it that way. So I really like your points around about the personal voice, the commercial awareness, the client trust, the really loyally things that are unique to human beings. So that's great. If I may press you, in the race for AI dominance, you work with these things a lot. Which tools do you think today are at the forefront and that we should be playing with? I'm historically just a ChatGPT man, but I know there's a race on and you ignore other platforms at your own peril. So if you were to venture, who's leading the race when it comes to legal work?
Oh, that's such a great question. And it is such an exciting race to watch, because to be honest with you, a tool one day that you think is in the lead, a week later, there's another tool that you've never heard of, or the other main competitor has taken over. I like to remain tech agnostic, and I say that with a pinch of salt because, Fusion has just implemented Lagora firm-wide, which is a legal AI assistant. And it's a fantastic tool. We obviously vetted it thoroughly, benchmarked it against all its competitors, etc., and decided that was the one for us. But it was the one for us at a particular moment in time. It was the one for us in July. We're now in November. The tool, has changed. They've got a development roadmap and they've developed some amazing functionality, but they also have competitors that have a lot of money being thrown at them, lots of seed funding going in, and potentially some of their competitors have now, have got a better product. And I'm saying potentially because we're tech agnostic, we're not silly enough to marry ourselves to one product for all of eternity. We are constantly scanning the horizon and vetting the alternatives. So we are about to start a pilot with Harvey, which is a direct competitor of Legora, also another legal AI assistant. Because we need to make sure we know that it's still the right tool. When it comes up for renewal next year, we need to make sure that we're renewing because it's still the best product on the market. So, at this moment in time, I would recommend as a general legal AI assistant, Legora is really a fantastic tool. And it's not always about the functionality only. It's also about the organization and the vendor and the people that sit behind that, what kind of support you're getting, how much influence you have on the roadmap. If you ask for a particular function to be developed, how quickly is it going to appear in the product for you to use? So that's all very important. You can't just say, oh, well, functionality wise, it looks great. It's the best at the moment. So lots to consider, but I would definitely recommend a legal AI assistant tool over a general GBT model. So, and unfortunately, that's not always affordable. There are some South African entities that are starting to build some legal AI assistants, which are better priced. And I say maybe look for one that's got a legal wrapper, because most of those tools have got an additional layer of training on top of the large language model on which it's built. So it is, more risk averse. It is more appropriate for use in legal. It does have a bunch of other things that, that makes it a bit better than your general GBT tools.
Yeah. I think ChatGPT will always take a punt.
And to be clear, some of these tools that we use, including Legora, have got ChatGPT as an underlying model. So they use all of the, large language models. They use Anthropic's and Gemini's LLMs as their underlying basis. So they don't develop their own large language models. That would be silly. If someone else is doing it better and they're giving it to you for free, it's open source. Why not use it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can keep going, but I'm going to defer to Bradley and others who have questions.
So thank you for that. Nerushka, just to come back round to you under that notion of staying curious. I agree with everything that you were saying wholeheartedly. But what stood out to me is what I think is also somewhat of a challenge that maybe our soon-to-be graduate students are facing, is that there is this notion increasingly that, if I frequently tell my students, 99% of current practitioners are not doing today in law what they thought they were going to be doing when they were at university. That's always been the case. And now you roll in this notion that it seems to me, I don't know, but increasingly, as you point out, people move around a lot. So part of why you need to be curious is that because you're not going to stay in one particular field or one particular area of the law, there's this constant sort of swirl of needing to develop and stay abreast and stay curious, etc., etc. My question, and I don't know if you have an answer to this, it's just something that I'm thinking about, is does that also not potentially play into this notion that are there people that really need to have a deep level of knowledge about a particular field if you're going to be moving around so frequently? Doesn't it almost lead into this notion that sort of AI knowledge? What's that saying, that AI knows everything about everything other than about something that you know something about? Does it not play into the sense amongst graduates these days that sort of more of a superficial knowledge is sort of okay because you might be moving around frequently, which obviously ignores the fact that it's those underlying core skills that you need to learn as well, that's so important. But do you see that amongst the younger generation about this notion of moving around and not having to develop that expertise at all?
So let me elaborate a little bit on what I meant by curiosity. Maybe it got misinterpreted. I'm not saying moving around or jumping between fields of law. I'm saying whatever your chosen path is, there will be a lot of change and disruption. So let's take banking and finance law, for example. If you're a banking and finance lawyer, it's a highly regulated industry. That industry as a whole was highly disrupted by the fintech. So understanding what a cloud is, what the API is, if you as a banking lawyer want to defer that to a tech lawyer, your clients will be like, we want to have this conversation with you as the banking and regulatory lawyer. You need to upskill yourself in terms of what disruption the industry you operate in is going on, and you need to be curious enough to learn those new things. So when I say be curious, it's not about jumping between different specialities. It's actually whatever path you already have expertise in, that expertise you had yesterday may become outdated tomorrow. And so you have to continually ensure that you're staying up to date within your relevant field. And I do think we do need experts in particular fields. I don't think we should be, I think there's space for both. There's space for generalists. For example, in-house counsels, for example, often have to be generalists because, there might be one of you in this large organization and you're being asked all the legal questions and you're going to have to wear all the legal hats. And there's definitely room in the legal industry for generalists, but there's also still room for highly skilled, specialized individuals who specialize in one area of law. But even if you do that, your job's not going to stay the same every day. You're going to still have to be curious and continue to learn. So I hope that clears up that distinction.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I think it's a balancing act in terms of those underlying skills that one needs to work at, especially at university. This is the opportunity to do that. Lucia, thank you for responding to that question from I think it's Mr. DeToy. Can I just ask you, is it fair to say that in the context of legal Gen AI and all these tools, to what extent is it actually made useful by virtue of the underlying, or I assume that you are loading a lot of your own documentation, your own data into that system? Is it only as good as what you're feeding it potentially as a starting point, or am I incorrect in the sense that when you're using these tool sets, it's going out there into the world, or is it premised off data that you feed it as well? Is that really what sets sort of these in-house AI tool sets apart?
So it's a bit of both. It really depends on how you use it. So these legal AI assistant tools have a feature to ask it to go out into the internet and get a general response. But they also have a feature where you can direct it to your personal databases or precedent banks or the client's data. And it allows you to do that because it's a ring-fenced instance. So with these tools, it's not open to the public. It's, if you ask with ChatGPT generally, unless you've changed your settings specifically, or have a professional license, if you ask it a question or upload a document into the tool and ask it a question, it's going to feed that information back into the LLM and into the internet, right? And that is breaching client confidentiality. So if you haven't redacted it, that is massive, massive red flag. That's a massive problem. So you want to either redact it or you want to get a ring-fenced tenant or instance of the tool. If you go with the legal AI assistant, those are largely already ring-fenced. They're operating in your own environment. It's not going out and putting your data into the internet. It's not training the LLM model. They are very, very strict with that. I mean, if something had to go wrong there, they would totally lose all their customers and their business would just absolutely flop. So they're incredibly they're very specific on the InfoSec requirements there. But what is really useful with these tools is when you have your own instance in your environment, you can ground it in your precedents and tools, and that does give an exponentially better output from the AI than if you're not grounding it in that. We're actually working with some of the local South Africa legal research vendors, to see if we can integrate things like Juta, LexisNexis, etc., into the tool, so that it can accelerate and the answers even further. So not only is it going onto the general web. It's actually going into a South African repository of law and case law to be able to give you an answer. And obviously, you can imagine how much more correct that's going to be than if you just ask it on a general ChatGPT.
Yeah, but I mean, I presume their Safely, for instance, as an open database, has probably been trawled exponentially by all of these systems in any event, right? So I think a lot of that stuff is there as well. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. Ms. Goldstuck, how can academic institutions better prepare their students considering the role of AI, both in terms of hard and soft skills? And then the kicker, are the AI policies in South African universities, most of which discourage academic use of AI? That's going to change, Ms. Goldstuck. But are they actually placing students at a disadvantage? To both of you, what's your sense around that? Where do you think universities are needing to go, if you've got any thoughts on that?
Sure, I'll go first. In terms of the policies, I also think there needs to be, an update to those policies, because you can say don't use the tools, but doesn't mean somebody's not going to use the tools, and it just creates more gray area than being helpful. The other end of the spectrum is the tools that are being used for detection in terms of Turnitin and others have very low accuracy rates. And so what's been happening, yes, it might be detecting some people who are using AI, but it's also sometimes having false positives. So basically saying this person used AI when they didn't. And I've heard of more than one instance in South Africa as well, where students have been banned from universities for periods of 6 years on false accusations, and now have to hire lawyers to go and fight these cases just to get back and study again. Which I think, it's not worth using a tool if that's going to be the consequence, even for one individual, preventing them from study. However, as we say, there are moves now to rather create policies about how to use AI ethically, responsibly, in an academic setting. I think is much more important, so that when you're using the tools, you're doing them in the right way. You're not outsourcing your thinking and all of the rest of it. You're not doing it in a way that amounts to plagiarism, but you're doing it in a way that you're probably going to use for the rest of your life as well. So it's more learning a skill of how to use it properly in that policy, as opposed to an outright ban.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If universities only police AI and they don't teach it, they're putting their students at a disadvantage. I mean, especially in South Africa, where we've got the national AI policy that explicitly wants AI integrated into curricula. I don't know if you guys have seen that coming out, but the picture is already shifting. We've got a lot of South African universities that are moving from a banned to regulated use. I think, what can universities do differently? They can make AI literacy and integration part of the courses. It needs to be taught very carefully, and they need to move from, how to think with AI as opposed to, just being against it.
Derek? Thank you.
I have a slightly different question, maybe, Lucia, more up your alley. I was sitting on a panel the other day, which Bradley organized. He had the trifecta there, someone from practice, someone in-house, and someone from, let's say, alt law. And the alt law shop had like hundreds of attorneys all over the world doing e-discovery.
Yeah.
And I might make some enemies now, but checking an AI's homework seemed like the biggest waste of a legal talent. Would you agree that if your path leads you to a place where you're sitting at the 100th floor of a high rise and you're just marking an AI's homework for accuracy, that's a waste of a legal mind, is it not?
Yes, depends on what stage of your career you're in, because I certainly would not want the associates in my team to be doing data validation or AI output validation only. Although they do it sometimes because it's part of their learning journey. It depends what the data points are that they're checking. You referenced e-discovery. E-discovery work, in my experience, can be quite mundane and monotonous. And so, yes, getting someone of an associate level to check the AI output for a dispute or a forensic investigation, I think could be a waste of their time. But I would use legal analysts. So, those with LLBs that maybe want some work experience, maybe they want to get involved in a forensic investigation or disputes matter so they can understand what types of legal issues are at play, what the strategy would be. There's actually a lot that you can gain from being on those matters, even if you are just validating output.
Okay, I'm just looking at your list for the link that you shared as well. It's absolutely hilarious. And I fear that many lawyers might perpetuate all of this. We love our words, getting things over the line and all of that.
Absolutely.
So we've got some comments. Maybe if we can start pulling things towards wrapping up now, Derek. I guess we've been here for a little bit over an hour already. But there, Mr. DeToy again, I was writing a response to you, but would uploading copyrighted works to an unconfigured public model constitute an infringement? For example, working through university questions with AI to understand the lecturer's methodology in a memorandum during revision, or even the slides or the course frameworks, etc., etc. Well, I mean, again, technically, yes. In terms of the IP of the university and the policies around that, that is university's IP, and you sharing that and going, external with that is technically a contravention of the terms of use. Now, Derek will know far more about this in terms of the fair use policy and the like. The bottom line is, and while I was typing this already, students have been doing this for years, uploading question papers to StuDoco so that they can download other people's question papers, etc., etc. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make it right. It happens. But I mean, that is the challenges around the gray areas of AI use and the like, right? Because that is also feeding the algorithm. As much as you get use out of it, it is taking IP from your lecturers, from your university, and sharing that with with what is already out there. I don't know if you want to add anything from the IP perspective to that, Derek, or anyone else.
The IP is complicated, but what I will say on a lighter note, there may or may not be a person on this call that profiles lecturers with a view to better forecasting what to spot. So that's the highest level of sophistication that I've come across here. To profile the lecturer to spot better is really a very innovative use of the technology. Yeah. I think, right. Bradley, shall we land the? I can keep going forever, but shall we maybe pivot to Dirk?
Yeah, just that last comment of yours, Nerushka, what you said about not outsourcing really resonated. I have myself previously had concerns about becoming a cyborg. Where do you personally draw the line? Exercise restraint in your use of AI in your work when it comes to drafting agreements, emails, opinions, research, and the like. Also, a very fair question. Maybe we can. I see now one more comment there, so we'll just see how that comes out. But maybe Nerushka, if you want to just respond there.
Sure. No, I love that question. So for me, it's not really about drawing a line or how much should I use AI in a day. It's more about how you use it. And I think it's really, I saw something this week where there's a newspaper article, and the last paragraph is, that little comment you get from ChatGPT. Would you like me to improve this by adding, making it a more professional tone? That little always ask you like the next step. They just copy and pasted, obviously, that article out of ChatGPT, sent it to the editor. Editor obviously didn't read it, put it in the newspaper, got printed, and now people are circulating this thing. So that's what I mean by outsourcing your thinking. You're not even reading the output to the end. You're probably just skimming to see if everything looks okay. So yeah, and you need to engage with what you're working with. You still need to be thinking. You need to be in the loop throughout the process. Whether you're asking it to help you draft or brainstorm or come up with ideas, the decision making, the ethical, use of the output, all of that still remains your obligation. And when you enter the profession, you're entering, it's a big thing. You go and stand there in court and you do an oath and all of the rest of it. You are signing up that you are going to, do this ethically and responsibly. And I think that's expanding also when you're starting to use these tools. Unfortunately, we've got too many cases to name of lawyers who've just been outsourcing their thinking when doing their research and their pleadings, and have just submitted all of these hallucinated cases to court. And that's what I'm saying we need to get against. That means we've switched our brain off. We're just saying AI, do this, do this, do this, copy paste, and move on to the next item on our to-do list.
Yeah, and I just, not to abuse the mic, but that last point is where I think from a faculty's perspective, from a university's perspective, that's where we are most concerned, because one of the potential byproducts of outsourcing to AI at university level is you are not equipping yourself to become quicker, to become familiar with how to do things efficiently and quickly yourself. So I suspect what is happening out there in practice is the advocate expects something of the lawyer and the senior lawyer. The lawyer pushes that down to the candidate attorney, who's under time constraints to produce something, but potentially under that pressure runs to AI.
Absolutely.
And then that just doesn't get picked up, right? And that goes all the way back up the tree, because that candidate attorney has potentially lost the ability to maybe work, or could in future lose the ability to work quickly under pressure if they've been outsourcing all along to AI while they were at university still. And I think that we're potentially going to see more of that before we see less of that going forward. But thank you for that. Okay, Derek, do you want to pull things towards Dirk there?
Yeah. So our expert, Dirk Brandt, is on the call. And Dirk has found our singular best work that we want to promote for a prize. So Dirk, thank you for your attendance also. Dirk is a bit of a rock star when it comes to AI. If you follow him, you'll see bounces around the world doing very good work on the ethical use of AI. Dirk, what did you find for us? Did you find gold there for us to reward?
Thank you, Derek. Yes, we posed a case study in the healthcare sector. And the question is really about using AI constructively in solving good use cases, but cementing it in a bigger context. And just to reflect quickly on one of the points Lucia made, and that is to, I think, bring in AI literacy as a part of the university curricula. I would fully support that. It's crucial. When I advise clients, it's always also making sure that you have a policy, but also building in AI literacy for your staff. That's the way you eventually get to a point where you can say, but now we understand how to use responsible AI. Okay, so getting back to the case study, yes, I think we can award a prize. And the prize winning entry was a bit short, but content-wise, what I liked in particular is that the entry highlighted the importance of specific ethical concerns, the importance of AI literacy within the medical context, and creating an AI governance mechanism when you want to use AI to improve healthcare services. So those for me stood out as a critical or the most valuable points in that short response. And shall I announce the winner? It's to Mr. Joshua Powell, if I pronounce your surname correctly.
Yeah, congratulations, Josh.
Congratulations.
Josh has done a short internship at our firm as well, and he is a live wire. So I'm no surprises there.
I'm sure there was ethical auditing. That wasn't the reason why Josh went away with the prize. But congratulations.
We had no hand in it.
Okay. Derek, thank you. Dirk, thank you. To everyone, I think tonight has been really interesting. It's been fantastic to get both sides of the thinking around where we are moving towards. From Stellenbosch University side, particularly the law faculty, we are not asleep to what is currently happening out there, but we are also quite cautious about wanting to get our initial frameworks right. There are a lot of universities in South Africa that have already started moving in that direction. So it has afforded us an opportunity to have a look at what is happening out there. But we are certainly alive to the increase in need. And I mean, even the Legal Practice Council, right? They're now introducing this fifth examination, requiring cybersecurity elements in terms of that as well. So I mean, we acknowledge that this is going to be important going forward. So thank you for these insights. Derek, anything more from your side? This brings a close to season 3 of the seminar, AI and the Law, and what a fantastic way to end this seminar series.
Yeah, thank you, Nerushka, Lucia, and Derek for your involvement. It's been a great and thought-provoking session. And Derek, Brad, it must be getting nippy outside of the OWIF. You probably need to get indoors there. I see you're...
Yes, I'm very tall as well, as you can see. Anyway. Yes, but thank you all, and thank you for your insights, and we wish you all well for the remainder of this last bit of the year. That you can all enjoy a safe and well-deserved holiday. And to our students, those who have joined in, I hope you are done with your assessments. But if you do still have a few last ones coming up, all the best. We are thinking about you, and we know that it will go well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Bradley.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.